doctoral college. So I do work across a whole range of things, and I do a lot of things for the doctoral college and PGR. So you might have been to an event I've done before, and today I'm going to focus about how to present. We're going to look at online and in person. Do you want me to just start the presentation up here, or is there anything else you wanted to say?
Both myself and Stephanie, we were thinking of how to kind of develop or how to put everything on one roof or in one page. So we did both Stephanie and myself. We did think to include or to create a blog for the BGR students at UWS, and part of this blog, with this BGR blog, there is a BDB sessions. This is where we include all the PowerPoint presentation, all the videos or blogs and everything. Of course, I will allow here it is. Stephanie put the link here, and you are very welcome to contribute by writing the blogs. I know that some PhD students have done presentation before in the previous weeks, so they are very welcome to contribute by writing a blog and anything else, because I have uploaded all the notes, PowerPoint, and all the recording in this page. But if you really wanted to write a blog is something like maximum 500 words or 200 words or 300 words on your experience as a PhD student or in anything related to the PhD. You are very welcome. You can send it to me. Once I approved it, of course I will pass it to Stephanie as well for her opinion. Once we both approve that, it will be published straight away, and I can promise you I will come back to you straight away. So we really need this page to be live, so any contribution from BGR community will be much appreciated. Thank you. I will leave you, Stephanie, to.
Great, thanks. So let me share my slides, and I will share a PDF version of these slides afterwards as well. So hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, if you do have any questions, I will keep the chat open. So just put them in the chat, and don't worry about disrupting me. I'm happy to explain something in more detail. That's no problem at all. So I'm going to share a couple of kind of top tips. I don't have too much time to go into detail for all of these things, but I will share a couple of links to some of the sessions I have done that talk about some of these things in more detail, and there you can find them on Stream, or if you're in part of the PGR page on Teams, they're all linked there as well. So I will share that with you via the chat in a second as well. We're going to have a look at kind of in-person and online presentations. I'm going to talk a little bit about poster presentation, especially if you're maybe submitting a poster to the PGR poster competition. We're going to have a quick look at asynchronous. So if you're doing something pre-recorded, maybe for a conference where maybe the time zone doesn't work for you, if it's an online conference, sometimes they allow you to submit a pre-recorded version as well. And then going to have a little look at how to deal with questions and what might happen if you are, especially if you are presenting maybe at a conference. So the first tip I have is practice. And everyone is nervous. However, practice can help. You might want to practice with some friends. Maybe you want to get together as a group. Maybe there are research seminars happening in the school. Feel free to present some of the work there. There is a way, and I will show that in a second, you can actually practice with PowerPoint. There is a coach feature in PowerPoint that you can turn on. It will record you, but that recording won't go anywhere, but it will give you feedback maybe on how fast you're speaking. If you are reading your slides, it will tell you that as well. And that's been quite a good feature actually, if you want to practice kind of without an audience, but want to get some feedback, that's a good way to do that. Keep in mind, whatever you are presenting, you are the expert. no one has done your research like you. You know, if that is your PhD, maybe people have done similar work, but they are not you. They won't have done it in your context and with your experience. So keep that in mind when you are presenting as well. Use breaks to your advantage. So make sure that the audience has a chance to think. So you might want to do that by having a slide with just an image, maybe a blank slide, maybe just a break after you've asked a question. Don't think you have to fill the silences all of the time. It's good to give a little bit of thinking time to your audience as well. This also helps you to slow down. So when you are maybe presenting online, you could ask a question and have people give people a chance to reply via the chat, for example. If it is an in-person conference, you could even do an activity by asking people to maybe raise their hand or to just have a quiet think to themselves about something. Make sure you stick to the time you've been allocated. If someone emails you and says you have 10 minutes to present and then 3 minutes for questions, just talk for 10 minutes and practice that you are talking for 10 minutes. The same, you might be asked to talk for an hour, 50 minutes, whatever it'll be. Make sure you do stick to the time allocation. There's nothing worse than either being told to basically make a finish or to, sorry, if you can make sure that you're on mute, please, because I'm getting some background noises.
Muted. I have muted everyone, Stephanie.
Unmute.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So there's nothing worse than being told, you know, oh, you need to come to the end. You have a minute left, and then the presenter actually then going, oh, I'm just going to skip these next things. If it's skippable, why was it in your presentation in the first place? Is my question to that. And then tell people if and how they can, and I've just realized there's a word missing there, how they can share your presentation. You know, is there an online version? Have you archived it somewhere? Is it okay for them to take photos and maybe post on social media? So make sure you have that somewhere, even through like a slide, or maybe mention it at the start of your presentation. Oh, there you go. I'm not sure what's up with all of these typos in these slides. I'm sorry about that. Present for your audience. So keep in mind, who are you talking to when you're presenting? Is this a research seminar where you know most of the people who are attending? Is this a conference where there's a mixed audience? Is it maybe, you know, a PGR event where you don't know actually, you know, what people are researching? Is it a very specific conference or maybe a specific session on a very particular aspect? So keep in mind, who are you talking to, and adjust your presentation accordingly. Make sure you do make it relatable to that audience. So that could be through a quote, maybe a bit of a personal story or anecdote, or maybe an image, just to give people a link to your research that might not be that obvious, but also to make it relatable to them. So by having maybe a story or an anecdote, that can really help people to kind of link it back to their experience, which then means they're paying more attention when they're listening to you. Do make sure you leave them with food for thought. So you might want to finish your presentation with some recommendations, maybe a call to action. Maybe there's something you want to people to change, maybe behavior, or maybe the way they think about something. So have that in mind as well, and that could be your last slide. My other top tip is do not have, even though I do it for my webinars all the time, I have a question mark slide. I always finish with any questions. For a webinar and a session like this, that's perfectly fine. If you are presenting at a conference, keep your conclusion or recommendation slide up, and then maybe have a question mark appear on that slide. That last slide will be up the longest because it'll be up during the time for questions. So make sure people don't look at a question mark. Make sure people look at your conclusions or your recommendations. And do prepare for a couple of questions, and I will cover that at the end of the session as well. There's some very common questions, but also how to reply to some of the questions you might get. So looking at in-person presentations, and this is mostly for conferences now. So know some of the PowerPoint tricks. So for example, if you are on a Windows machine, if you press F5, if PowerPoint is open, it'll start the slideshow. The other way you can go straight to a slideshow is to actually save your PowerPoint as a PPS file rather than a PPT file. What that does is it basically means it'll open as a slideshow straight away. There's none of this awkward opening PowerPoint, having to try and find the slideshow button, especially if you're, don't have much time. Having it saved as a PPS file, it'll go straight to the slideshow. Make sure you do use the microphone that is provided in most conference centers. It might be built in at the lectern, it might be handheld, maybe it's a clip-on mic. This is mostly for accessibility reasons. People might not be able to hear wherever they're sitting. And basically you just asking people if they can hear you is a waste of your time, but it could force someone to having to disclose that they are not able to hear you for a number of reasons. So just if there is a microphone available, just use it. Make sure, again, as I said before, that people know if and how they can share your slides. You might want to archive it through Figshare. If you can make a profile on Figshare for free, and you can have all of your presentations there, you can have posters there, you can have data there, and that makes it downloadable. And then you also get a DOI, so a digital object identifier, which means people can reference it. And you can obviously keep track of downloads as well. So you might want to at some point say that, I don't know, 100 people downloaded your poster, or 200 people looked back over your slides. If you are at a conference, and that's easier said than done sometimes, is try and stay in one place. Obviously, if there's a built-in mic at a lectern, then I expect you to stay at that lectern and present. It can be really comforting to have that kind of barrier in front of you and something to hold on to. But even if you're given a handheld mic, try and stay on one side of your presentation, maybe halfway move to the other side, but try not to move too much. It makes it harder for people to focus. I know people do sometimes like to walk around, but for a conference, especially if it's 10 minutes, there's no harm in you just standing still and having people focusing on your presentation. If there's a laser pointer available and you want to point at something on your slides, I would recommend that you circle rather than point. And the idea is I can't really show you obviously online at the moment because it won't happen, but you are probably quite nervous, and that means you have shaky hands. And if you try and point at something on your slide or on the presentation that's up behind you, people will see the shakiness and you'll see your shakiness, and that might make you more nervous. However, if you do a circular motion, then because you're moving anyway, the shakiness isn't as obvious, and that can really help as well, so people know what you're circling. If you don't want to use the laser pointer, you could have an animation pop up. So for example, a circle around something that's important, or maybe an arrow popping up. And that saves you having to rely or use the laser pointer. So you could do it like that, for example, or an arrow. Or you could have the arrow coming in. I didn't realize I had so many different. Try with animations to basically keep them to a minimum, and that means they have the biggest impact. So if nothing has happened and then an arrow appears, I'm paying attention. If all of your slides are full of animations, that might get lost as well. So looking at online presentations, which with the way things are going might become less, but there are still conferences who either offer hybrid or are fully online, or maybe you're presenting online at a research seminar, maybe somewhere else. So these are some of the things to keep in mind for that. Make sure you're familiar with the platform. I would say the most common use at the moment are Zoom and Teams. So just know, where's the chat? How can you mute people? How do you share? How do you unmute yourself? How do you stop the camera? All of those kind of things you do want to know. Make sure that you can share your screen. Depending on the Zoom setting, you might have to tell someone to allow you to have that available. And there are a couple things where you can turn off the incoming feed. So I think on Zoom, I think Teams as well now, actually, you could turn off your own camera, as in that you don't see yourself on the screen. That can really help to not be too distracted. And try and look at the camera every now and then. It's really difficult to do, especially if other things are happening or other people are talking. But during a presentation, it can really help to every now and then make a focus of looking into the camera so people feel like you're talking to them. Make sure you can practice as well, what the screen sharing looks like for you. So the ones I'm going to talk about is Zoom and Teams, which is the most common ones used. There are other ones, WebEx, which UWS uses sometimes as well. GoToMeeting is one as well. If you have something that's new, it's worthwhile to ask the organizer if you could have a try run just to see what it looks like and what buttons to press. If you can, I highly recommend to use headphones. You might want to use the built-in microphone and just have the headphones for listening, depending on the quality of your headset. Again, it's worth to test that out. The reason I kind of like to use headphones is it ensures privacy. So whatever you tell me doesn't go beyond my ears. And also helps to kind of drown out other noise. So for example, at the moment, I can tell that somewhere outside someone is cutting the grass, but you shouldn't be able to hear that because of the mic I'm using, but also means I'm not really distracted by all of that noise as well. And again, you can test the quality of the mic setup, maybe even with, if it's a platform you have access to, you can just call maybe a friend and just see what it looks like. You can test different headsets and headphone setups as well. If you can't use a headset or headphones, make sure that you either turn on Do Not Disturb if you have that functionality, or shut down any programs that have notifications on. Because if you have your email notifications on and you don't have a headset on, people will hear your email notification popping up, for example. Or if you have like in WhatsApp or something open that dings all the time, either turn the notifications off or a Do Not Disturb setting if you have it, just to make sure people don't get distracted by all of these things happening while you're sharing your screen. Try and have a neutral background, so you can't have it as is. It depends a little bit on your settings. So I have basically my blue wall behind me and then my bookcase, and I'm quite happy with that background. There is an option in Zoom and in Teams to blur your background, which I highly recommend you do if there are things that you can't move, for example, that you don't want people to see. Just keep in mind, sometimes depending on the way the blurred works, depending apparently on your hair color or what you're wearing, it might cut out some of those things as well. So maybe have a try and see what it looks like. You can upload a background as well. So you can either use a pre-made background. If you search for them online, you can find them. Some of them are available through Zoom or Teams as well, and you can just pick one that you like. You can obviously create your own background as well, and we do have UWS backgrounds available as well that I can share. So it's just some of the campus photos, for example. The other one that might sound a little bit weird is the test your outfit. I don't really like when people say you should be wearing X, Y, and Z, and this is professional, this isn't professional. This is not about this at all. The one thing I would say for online is just to see what it looks like. And this is from my personal experience where I had bought a new top to wear for an interview. I had an online interview. And because the way I was sitting and the way my background, everything was, it looked like a hospital gown. So that wasn't ideal, and I didn't want it to think people that I had, that I was wearing a hospital gown, obviously. So I did change my top. So that's just something to keep in mind because of the way you're sitting rather than standing, for example. But other than that, or the color might get cut out if you use a blurred background. So have a look at that. But other than that, I think whatever you're comfortable wearing, that's what you should be wearing. Make sure you do tell the chair or the host of the event you're attending if you would like them to look after the chat box. I'm quite used to it now, having the chat box open, and I can just see that a comment was posted by a beer. And I'm quite happy to kind of switch between, presentation and the chat box, and sometimes even get disrupted and, comment on things happening in the chat. If you don't want to do that, maybe because you're nervous, you could obviously close the chat box and you could ask the chair to let you know if something urgent is popping up in the chat, or you could just tell people, please post into the chat, but I won't be looking at it till the end. And that's just to help you manage kind of your nervousness and maybe the flow of your presentation. For most online conferences I've been to, the chat normally is kind of full with people commenting on things they agree with or disagree with, sharing ideas, and that can be quite distracting. So, it's fine for you to close it down and then just to say you're going to look back over it once you're finished. So the way to share your presentations, I just wanted to show that you can basically set the way you want PowerPoint to look, and you might have not seen this before, but if you go into view, if you go into slideshow, you can select what you want the slideshow to look like. So there's presented by speaker, which is a full screen. So you will see the slide other people will see, and then you will actually see the next slides that are coming up. That can be helpful if you're not sure what order your slides are in, if you're a bit worried about forgetting something. Then you can do browse by an individual, which is just one window. That's the setting I tend to use. And then browse at a kiosk, again, full screen, that has the screen people see, and then the kind of the preview available as well. And then I normally set it to saying to manually advance the slides. So sometimes you could have timings on your slides, and that means that the slide might change after a certain time. That's quite rare, but I would just to make sure double check that it's set to manually, and that means you are guiding the slides forward with the mouse or with the arrow key. These settings might be important for you for kind of in person as well, depending on what it looks like on your screen. So this is the version where you do the kind of presented by a speaker full view. This is what you will see. So on the left-hand side, so in this window, this is the slide that will be shared. And you can see it's slide 23 of 25. And this is the next slide. So it does come up here. And underneath, actually, if you do have any notes you left to yourself, and you can do that in PowerPoint underneath the slide, you can add little notes. So you could have references you want to mention, or something you don't want to forget about, or even you could have potentially little script there, what you're going to say. And in this view, nobody else will see that except you as the presenter. So that's something maybe to think about, to keep the text on your slides to a minimum, but if there's something you're worried about forgetting, you can add it into the notes. Also, if you have this view selected, this is how the coach in PowerPoint will work. So you will have to have this setting, and then you basically record yourself through the setting, and then you get the feedback from the built-in coach from PowerPoint. If you are using Zoom, then depends on basically what technology you have available. So if you have two monitors, if you have your main computer screen and a second screen, then you can select one of the screens if you want to. I highly recommend to select the screen your camera's at, because that means you can more easily look at the camera. So I have, I'm not sharing my screen fully. I selected a portion of my screen, but it's on the screen my camera's at, so I can easily look up and then look directly into the camera. If I would share my second screen, you can see desktop 2, I would be looking over here, which wouldn't be the end of the world, but I just think it kind of disconnects me a little bit from the people I'm kind of talking to when it comes to online. The other option, and this is what I have done just now, is that I am sharing portion of a screen. So it's this function here, and you have to go into screen share and then select advanced. And what this allows me to do is that I have PowerPoint not fully open. It's only open a little bit. You can see, actually, I just realized it's cutting off a bit, so I can make the window a bit bigger. There we go. And now you should see all of the slide. And this means that if you only have one screen, you may be on your laptop, maybe on a computer, that means you can have only a part of your screen taken up by PowerPoint, and you can have the chat open and other things open at the same time. and not just having your presentation visible to yourself. So this is definitely something to think about if you're sharing on Zoom, to maybe use the portion of screen setting. If you are presenting on Teams, just because of the integration of all of the kind of Office products, this is the view that you're getting on Teams. It is this kind of slideshow view, which I quite like because you can see all of your slides underneath, and you can actually slide along as well to kind of remind yourself, what slide is even, in 5 slides time, you can kind of have a look through that. So that makes it, I find it a bit easier to see your other slides. But for Zoom, you can do that as well, actually, if you have the view I showed you where you have one screen available and then the other slides, you can just share that one screen, for example, and you can see what slides are coming up. If we do have time at the end, I might show you what the coach looks like in Teams as well, and how you get to it. So just looking now at poster presentations, they're a little bit different to presentations where you are presenting, a PowerPoint presentation, for example. Again, you might want to think about how you are letting people share your poster. So do you want them to take photos, or do you want them to maybe not take photos of your poster? I highly recommend, again, archiving your poster on something like Figshare, and then adding a QR code to your poster. So instead of people taking a photo with their phone that then doesn't look so great, why not give them the opportunity to download a high quality version of your poster? This is what my Figshare looks like at the moment. I've not updated it in a while, but I have posters there, I have presentations there, and then I can either link to it and share links, or you can create a QR code from the link and then just tell people, hey, if you like my poster, why not download a PDF by scanning the QR code? And most phones these days have the functionality to go basically built-in QR code scanner. When it comes to the poster itself, so this is a poster I presented in 2019, the last time I was at an in-person conference. So I have the kind of these things there. So I said, here's, you can download a PDF using this QR code. And if you do talk about this poster, please tag me on social media. But also I did pre-record kind of a run through of my poster, basically almost me giving a presentation, and people could watch this video. And that was in case they were looking at my poster and wanted to know more about it, but I wasn't there. Because for a poster presentation, there is always a attended and unattended element. Normally, posters tend to be up maybe for a whole day while a conference is happening. And then you will be given a time slot when you're expected to be at your poster. For example, at the Research Festival, the posters, I think, will be up from 10 to 4, maybe even longer. But I think we'll expect you to be there from 11 till 12. That's just to basically give an opportunity to the judges to talk to you, but also so other people know if they have questions, you will be there to answer them. But if they happen to be there before or after, they can still look at the poster and get that information they want. And that means that a poster is slightly different to a presentation, where the presentation kind of has to happen with you there, where a poster has this element of you are there, but then you're not there. So have a think about the poster, is it can it be understood on its own? It obviously doesn't have to be fully understood on its own, because the reason you are there is to basically tell people more about it. And how are people going to be able to kind of, share or get more information? And you can have the QR code to your poster, but maybe you've written a blog post about your poster and maybe you want to link to that instead. So have a think about that the next time you're presenting a poster as well. It's really helpful for poster presentations to prepare a quick 2-minute pitch. And that could just be to get people's attention. Maybe someone is, walking around the poster boards. Maybe they're stood a little bit at your poster to look. You can just be like, hey, this is my poster and I'm doing research in XYZ. Do you want me to give you a quick tour or tell you a little bit more about it? So have that kind of quick opening speech, so almost ready. Be ready to answer questions. The idea for a poster, a little bit more than a presentation, is to be a conversation starter. And you can use this poster throughout the conversation. So they will ask a question, you answer it, but refer to your poster. So maybe refer to a data graph you have available, to your methodology, to some of your results, and have that poster seen as a kind of conversation guide almost. For a presentation, it's a little bit different because you're presenting and then there's the questions. So you can obviously refer back to certain parts of your presentation. Sometimes people maybe go back to the slide they're talking about, but it seems for a presentation, it's very separate as in presenting mode and question mode. And a poster is very much all in one. So it's more of a conversation. You can bring props to your poster. Maybe there's a piece of equipment that you would like to bring along. Maybe you want to have a sample you want people to see. Maybe there's a video that you want to show while you're there. If you don't necessarily want to do a QR code to it, you could have a laptop or a tablet maybe there to run that off. It's worthwhile to see if there will be little tables available for you to maybe place things on. And then try not to ambush people, even though I just said have that 2-minute pitch ready. Give people a little bit of time to have a look through your poster, and they might just trying to figure out if they want to know more about it or not. Sometimes, depending on the size of the conference, there's lots of posters to look at, so people might just do a scan and then come back. If they're a little bit like me, they will do that scan at the unattended time. So that's what I used to do at poster conferences or poster events at conferences. I used to go when nobody was there. I would basically scan the posters and then I would take a note of the poster number. And then when it was the attended time, I would come back and I would target the people I wanted to talk to. Then the other thing to think about, especially with more in-person conferences kind of starting up again, is even though you might have the QR code and people might scan it, it's still worthwhile to think about printing an A4 version of your poster. The easiest way to do that is to save your poster as a PDF from PowerPoint. And when you go print, just say scale to fit, and it'll scale it down to an A4 version. And then with double-sided printing, why not put a short CV on the back of your poster, especially when it comes to maybe, you may be looking for a postdoc position, maybe you're looking for a lectureship, maybe you're looking for another research position. You can have a little bit of information on the back as well. And that way people will have your poster, which hopefully will remind them of the conversations you had, and then all of your information on the back. You can stick them all in a Polly Pocket and put them at the poster board. A lot of the time poster boards will be with Velcro or double-sided sticky tape, depending on the conference, and just ask for a little bit extra tape and stick it next to your poster on the poster board. And the second to last section for presenting, and then I have a little bit more about kind of questions, is asynchronous or pre-recorded materials. And this is not just for presenting, this will be handy for, if you're thinking about maybe creating your own YouTube videos or for, teaching resources. A lot of these things will now be, or you might be asked to record or share them, afterwards rather than recording the session that we're doing just now. It could be that you maybe wanted to prepare something. So you can record in PowerPoint, and the recording feature in PowerPoint is getting better and better. The opportunity with that is you can record slide by slide. So you could do, open your slide, record, and then the next slide, and then just make sure you save it either as the PowerPoint presentation. So as people click through, they will be able to watch the video per slide, or you can also save it as a video file as well. You can also record in Zoom or Teams, or if you have available other recording software, that might depend on what technology you're using. However, Zoom and Teams are perfectly fine to record, or even within PowerPoint, that's getting pretty good as well. If you are recording in PowerPoint itself, you would go to slideshow and then record slideshow. And then basically, this is what it will look like. You kind of get your slide and you're in the bottom corner. And then there's a big kind of record button, and then you can even delete, and that because it's slide by slide, you can then basically re-record your one slide if you're not happy makes it quite easy not having to worry about having your whole script ready, for example. And you would select what camera you want to use and what microphone you want to use. So this is what it'll look like at the end. So, this is, I've recorded something and here's my little video at the bottom. You have the opportunity, once it is recorded, to move the video around. However, when you are recording, the video is in a fixed place. So you have to get used to basically your video. Maybe when you're recording, it might be covering something up. But once you have recorded, you can move your video around. So this is it. For example, I moved it a little bit higher just so it doesn't cover up information. And then you can, actually play it individually as well, or you could save it as a movie file, and then people wouldn't be able to do it slide by slide. But if you just save it as a PowerPoint presentation, that would be possible. You can also add subtitles directly into PowerPoint. You can turn them on through the slideshow again, subtitle settings below or above. And then you'd kind of have that available. That might save you having to do captions afterwards. It just depends on what's possible for screen reader users to use. This might be something you might want to do for a live presentation as well, rather than when you're recording yourself. The other way to add captions is to do it through Stream, which is available to you for free as part of the Office package. You can upload your video, you give it a name, you can give a description, what's happening. You select the language. This is to the language you recorded in, so either English, or if you're recording in another language, that's possible as well, to select that here. You can give your video a thumbnail. If you're just using this to get captions, don't worry about that. You then have an option to share this with everyone at UWS, or you can just untick that box and then it won't be shared, and it's just your personal video. Or you can share it with individual people as well if you wanted to, maybe your supervisor, for example. And then you would just click the auto-generate captions. This takes a little while, but it'll generate a text file that has the captions in it, and that can be edited. PowerPoint or Teams isn't that great, or Stream in that case isn't that great in getting everything right. And it depends a little bit on if you have an accent, for example. It might be different. I don't know what it's like for any other language than English. I've not recorded in another language, so it might be that it works easier in other languages. And if you have the subtitle file or the captions file available, you can even use that for YouTube. So maybe you want to share this video through YouTube rather than Stream. You can use this caption file for that as well. So the difference really between kind of Stream and YouTube is who has access. So if it is Stream, it basically can only be shared with people at UWS, and you can limit either by individuals or by a group or everyone, and that makes it searchable, but you have to be logged on with a UWS login to view this video. On the other side, if you have a YouTube channel, obviously you can make videos private, or you can unlist them, or you can have them fully public. But that means anyone really with a link, unless it's private, could watch your video. So it depends on what you want to use the video for. So I tend to have all my kind of UWS related videos on Stream. But if I have videos that I create that I want to share more widely, then I do have a YouTube channel, for example. So I know this is a confusing slide, and I just confused myself there. Questions, and that is basically how to prepare or how to deal with questions you are getting. So the first rule is it's okay to not know the answer. If someone throws you a question you weren't prepared for, or you've never thought about, it can be sometimes a bit left field, then it's okay to say, I'm really sorry, I've not thought about this, I don't know, but let me find out. Or you could have, conversation about it. Time and money are good reasons to not have done something. So if someone asks you, oh, why did you not do why did you not interview 10 more people? Why did you not go here to do your field work? Why did you not run these experiments? Just to say, okay, I'm a PhD student, I'm limited with time, or even, COVID, or we didn't have the funding to go to more than one country, are valid reasons to not have done something. Maybe they're asking something that wasn't within your scope at all, but that's interesting. So you can say, oh, that's really interesting. However, we wanted to focus on X, Y, Z, and this is a little bit more, A, B, C, perfectly fine as well. There might be potential to collaborate and to follow up. So if someone has something, especially maybe out with the scope of your study, let them know that you find it interesting and maybe there's potential, and make sure you do follow up with them either in the next break or find out who they were, and send them an email. It can be helpful to have kind of backup slides if you are anticipating a question about something because maybe you didn't have time to cover it in more detail. Maybe have a couple of extra graphs or other information on some slides after your last slide that you can maybe go to and refer to them if you need to. And you can prepare for a couple of questions that are quite common, and as you basically present more, you will kind of learn what people pick up on or what you might have not covered in depth. It's normally things you just didn't have time to cover in more detail that people are interested in. So maybe your methods or certain results, and often how it relates to their own research. So they will ask about something, but with their own research in mind. So don't worry, if it's something that you've not prepared for, it's fine to say that, but I definitely see it as an opportunity to follow up and to collaborate. Sometimes you get people that hog the conversation and they don't really ask questions, but they just they just want to talk about their own work and how important it is. That does happen. If the chair doesn't step in, and this is the person who would normally make sure everyone sticks to time, it's perfectly fine for you to say, this is so interesting, I would love to follow up over coffee. I just want to make sure other people have a chance to ask a question. And then you can maybe go and meet them in the break, or you could just say, like, would you mind emailing me? I would love to talk about this in more detail, but we don't have the time right now. That can be scary to do, especially if maybe you're a PhD student, this might be a professor, but don't worry about, kind of standing up for yourself and giving other people room to talk as well. Research shows that if a woman asks the first question, more women will raise their hand and ask questions. This is not necessarily something you are in control of, but something to maybe keep in mind if you are the one picking people who are answering questions. Obviously, if the only hands are up are from men, then you'll have to pick one of them. But just something to kind of keep in mind in how the first person we pick to ask a question can impact who else maybe will come forward to ask questions. And something that might be something you might want to ask is who picks the people who are asking questions. Often it will be the chair or the host who will do that for in-person events. If it is done online, then through the chat. But again, you might want to ask the chair if it's them who are going to basically read the questions to you, or if you can refer to the chat and do that in your own time. So just to summarize before we have time for questions, is practice is my top tip. Practice, practice, practice. You can use the rehearse with coach function in PowerPoint. I don't think I'll have time to show you, but I will make sure I share a link to that. And in one of the other recordings, I do talk about that in more detail. Make sure you do practice with peers. You could do a little rehearsal session where you get together and everyone presents for 10 minutes to practice. Or if you have research seminars happening in your school, it's worthwhile to ask if you can present, especially in preparation for your transfer event and your Viva. Getting that practice in a kind of safe environment can be really helpful. And make sure you do familiarize yourself with the room if it's in person. Maybe have a little look around how big the room is, where the lectern is, how many projections are behind you. Is it one screen, two screens, or the platform, especially if it's something you've not used before. And that's really it for me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Good question. There is no UWS template for PowerPoint available. unfortunately. However, we do have there's 2 logos available, but if you need more than that, I can find out. I think they're on the Connect pages, which unless you have a staff login, you might not get to. But I don't think we really have anything school or otherwise, unfortunately. Thing appear that we have a PowerPoint template for students or anyone to use.
You are very welcome. Thank you. Any other questions, guys, for Stephanie? No?
No, I can, if people want to see the rehearse with coach function in PowerPoint, I'm happy to do that if that's something you think would be beneficial. If you don't have questions, I can show you that.
Oh yeah, we still have 8 minutes, so.
Okay, let me see how that need to come out of the. I will have to make my screen a bit bigger. My sharing screen. One second, I'm just going to set up my slideshow and then I'll answer the question that just popped up in the chat. So if you don't have data yet and you ask to submit a poster, I highly recommend that you talk about the literature and the methodology and methods you want to use and what you hope to get out of your work, and use this poster to get feedback. Do other people think this is the right methodology and methods to be using for the type of question you have? And use this almost as a kind of an information gathering. Maybe people mentioned a method you've not thought about for that setup. It's perfectly fine to not have something be fully complete to present. And I think posters are perfect for that kind of, these are my ideas, what do you think kind of conversations. So that's what I would recommend to do if you don't have data yet. Talk about the work you have done and what you hope to achieve. Okay, so you can see I've changed the setting in the slideshow to be, let me set up slideshow, to be this one, presented by speaker, full screen. And now you can see that the rehearse with coach is available. If you have any other slideshow setting, this becomes basically grayed out, so you can't use it. And you click this. I don't know what will happen now because I think it'll go big. So what you can see now is this main slide. There is a timer. Let me see if I can make this a bit. There we go. So there's now a timer. Swap displays, use the slideshow, and there's some tips here. And then it says mute. And I think, I don't know where the button is to tell it, because normally the tips pop up. Oh, sorry, I just have to get my Zoom menu out the way. So there's another window. So sorry, it popped up to my other side. So basically you get this little window and says start rehearsing and show feedback. So let's press that now. Okay, so start talking and we'll show feedback for your speech here. So for example, if I go through the slides, I will have to kind of go back through some of my slides just to show. So to summarize, this is, we've talked about practice. You can see that the first tip it popped up is that I shouldn't use words like It also tells you if you're talking too fast, and it does tell you when you're using swear words and other things like that. So it's definitely worthwhile it does do other tips as well. Once you're finished, I think it does do a summary in the tips here. So this is, oh no, sorry, this is the shortcuts. I think I don't know where it saves it, but once you've done your kind of rehearsal, there is a summary where it tells you how long you've taken per slide, and some other kind of really helpful tips if you're talking too fast. If you are talking too slowly, you can see good going. Keep it up. So it's definitely worth to have a go at it with this kind of rehearsed coach. Maybe, and I would maybe do this before you maybe talk to practice with others. So this is the little report you get. So obviously I didn't record for a lot of time, but so basically it tells you how long it took you, how many slides you've practiced. Then it does say if you're using filler words like repetitive language. So it says you didn't really use anything. Exclusiveness. This is where it gets upset if you use bad words. Then your pace, pitch, ignore that, and then originality as well. And this is where if you have a slide and you start reading out what's on the slide, PowerPoint will tell you, and it will say, please don't read what's on the slide. That's not great for your audience. So yeah, so I really I was a bit skeptical at the start, but I really like this feature, and the feedback is actually quite helpful.
To be very honest, this is the first ever time for me to know this feature within PowerPoint. I didn't have a clue that it does exist, but you learn something new every day.
Yes, I can't remember. I think I saw it pop up, and then I was like, oh, what's this? And then the way I do, I just click on stuff, and I was like, oh. And I do think the feedback has been like this little report it does is quite helpful, and I think it can help practice and getting a bit of feedback without having to show it to someone.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly. It's very good point. Very good point. Very good point.
Yes, so this is on both Mac and Windows. So I used, I'm a Mac user, so this was on Mac. I think it's even available on the web version if you're on PowerPoint on web. The only thing to keep in mind is that the slideshow has to be set in this weird full screen mode. Otherwise, it's grayed out.
Okay, do you have any other questions in this feature on both Mac and Windows? Oh yeah, okay. I think you answered that. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, guys, for attending. Can you please do the poll for us as usual? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it's as you see here, 100% said, yeah, it's really very useful. I found it really useful. I learned lots and lots of new stuff today. So I was hearing, I said, oh yeah, this is really good, because sometimes when it comes to teaching, etc., we always go for what we already know. It's when it comes to learning something new, when you come to this age, sometimes you feel reluctant to learn. Anyway, thank you very much, Stephanie, and thank you guys for attending the sessions. I hope you can. I will email everyone with the link to the BDB sessions, and I will ask everyone if anyone wants to contribute by writing blogs or by videos or whatever. Of course, you are very welcome to send anything. Thank you very much. Thanks very much again, Stephanie. And definitely we'll invite you again for more sessions. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.